It's Pride Month, and I'm looking back at my last year of high school and an amazing drama class that made me gay. Well, it didn't make me gay, but it did cause my homosexuality to be surfacing in a more pronounced way. I've got some thoughts, so let's connect those dots. From the time I was young, I really loved TV, music, and movies, and even magazines. On the culture of pop, I have feelings and thoughts. Come along for the trip and we'll connect those dots. I'll tie things together that you might not know on a wild gay ride called Garth's Pop Culture. Oh! Episode 5, my big gay high school drama show awakening. In the last year or so, I've been really reflective about my coming out journey, in particular my late teen years. But up until now, I haven't talked about my last year of high school, when I got to perform an intense gay monologue, star in a wonderful drama show that was performed over the course of 4 nights, and have a moment at that show's after party that put me directly on the path towards accepting my sexuality. How did I get there? Let's go back to the summer of 1997. At first, I was not happy about the move because it felt nerve-wracking to be starting my last year of high school in a place where I didn't know anybody. But to my surprise, Markham is where I started experimenting with music on the computer, and when classes started in September, I was able to write articles for the local newspaper, The Economist and Sun, as part of a co-op placement. But it was drama class with my incredible teacher Jane Serreris that changed my life. The students of Markham District High School were warm and welcoming to me, and in the first month of drama class, Jane assigned us a monologue from the Michel Tremblay drama, Hosanna. I was 17 going on 18 at the time, and while I had some strong ideas that I wasn't straight, dealing with it was pretty scary. And this wasn't that long after the violent homoerotic movie Fall Time had really made an impact on me. So to have a monologue involving drag and homosexuality assigned to us in class was a blessing in disguise. I didn't have to declare anything about my own sexuality to explore this character and dive into what this piece meant, yet it overlapped with many of my own hopes and fears about being accepted for who I was. I found my original analysis of the scene from 1997, and it looks like we were asked to give our own interpretation of the characters without knowing much about the play, because my commentary assumes that Claude is speaking to a psychologist about how he became the glamorous Hosanna, and there is no psychologist in the play. But my notes are probably as telling about myself as they are about the characters as written. I wrote, Claude's voice should almost break when he reveals how he became Hosanna, and the emotional strain he felt while trying to gain acceptance. And I add that Claude knows the psychologist probably can't help with his struggle to come to terms with his homosexuality, and what contributed to his emotional wounds. So I give Jane so much credit for assigning a monologue to us that would make us think about gender, sexuality, and identity, and to take those things seriously. Things like that were early signs to me that maybe Markham could be a safer place to explore my own identity than where I had come from. But the main event that would change my life is the OAC drama show, Anybody Got the Time? Machine? It was a big event that would be performed over 4 nights in May 1998. It was a celebration of fun, creativity, and pop culture, and it had an old school, we're gonna put on a show kind of vibe, featuring
Just up in numbers, this could be it. Add it all up, you have a hit.
Shu Young was an amazing director, and in the words of our teacher,
Shuey has been a spectacular young man.
And he worked very hard with us to create a show that felt much like our own Saturday Night Live. We pitched ideas, came up with sketches, cut some of those sketches, worked around cast shakeups, held bake sales, and sold tickets. And I was able to write a few articles about the play that were featured in The Economist and Sun. My first article about the show appeared in an issue with a headline that read, Gun-toting children suspended, because they were dressed up as the village people for a skit in their French class. The 90s were wild. But the really cool thing is that the paper sent legendary photographer Sjoerd Witveen to take our pictures, and we even made the front page. What I love is that if you zoom in, we look like an old school comic book. One of my articles covered a grueling tech rehearsal that went so long that the students had to miss the Seinfeld series finale. As a TV nerd and an NBC lover, I knew I had to sneak in a must-see TV reference. We hung out a lot, lifted each other up, muscled our way through difficulties, got involved in fishing schemes, ate a lot of Ruffles, showed that we could flex different creative skills, and looked fabulous in boas. We listened to Ben Folds 5 and Weezer backstage. And when Pink Triangle came on, one line really stood out to me.
I'm dumb, she's a lesbian. I thought I had found the one.
I remember Jennifer and I looking at each other all, what did we just hear? We also paused to watch the Transformers VHS on one of those old school TVs that was strapped to a cart. Speaking of VHS, I found my old receipt from AOV showing that I rented Montreal Men right in the middle of our 4-night run of performances. And I laughed when I found a picture of myself under the classroom etiquette sign, because Montreal Men certainly did not follow the rules of that etiquette. Except maybe the stay on task with enthusiasm part. But renting videos like that and then racing back to class were part of the paradox I was living at the time. Straight by day, gay by night. Although my visits to AOV were one of the first slivers of affirming my gay identity. But now, back to the play. The original blurb from the play reads, Anybody Got the Time? Machine? Sure, it's a question that everyone asks at least once in their lifetime. The plot of tonight's show revolves around the idea of time travel and how it must be used to save the world from a mysterious epidemic that's causing millions to die. Okay, that part's a little awkward now. It's up to Professor Von Stinkle to get to the bottom of this mystery and save the world as he and a cast of enthusiastic OAC students put on an energetic evening that includes singing, dancing, and Barry Manilow. Oh yeah! After more than 25 years, I finally digitized the tapes of the show that Shu Young gave me, and I was a little worried about how well the show had aged. To my surprise, it's a cool time capsule of the era, blending our own quirks with references to what was hot in the 90s. There were sketches about video dating, talk show parodies complete with Jerry Springer-esque fights, X-Files references, and a song about Dolly, the sheep that was genetically cloned. Dolly, you genetic freak! There was even a nod to Titanic, where I got to play Jack.
So glad to see you again.
Jack, I can't do this. I'm engaged to Cal.
But you don't love Cal. You love me.
But it was two of the other scenes I was in that showed the contrast between my facade and who I really was. In one scene, I played a surfer character doing a horrible Bill and Ted impression who wants to go back in time to meet women.
What qualifications do you have?
Well, because I really like time, see the watch, and time travel is so good because I can go back in time and get the babes, because the babes will say, wow, I'm dating a time traveler.
Oh, but okay.
I got no laughs, and it really was
Totally not righteous.
Okay.
But another scene was inspired when a group of us went to Shu Young's house to discuss sketches, and he brought out an LP of Barry Manilow's greatest hits. We fell in love with Copacabana, and we built a whole number around it.
Alright, first up we have the Disco Police. Slow down, here we go. Don't ease on your tail, you better pull over.
Seeing how I came to life twirling in a glittery vest to a campy disco hit by a man who performed with Bette Midler in bathhouses was a big contrast with flopping hard, pretending to be interested in babes, doing a horrible surfer accent. It almost works as a metaphor for being more successful by being authentic. And/or I'm like Madonna and just become a better performer when I'm playing versions of myself. But I also noticed some cool, slightly progressive moments, including a Don Juan character who was unintentionally pansexual.
I seduce all sexes, no matter what sex.
And even though there were big laughs when Don Juan made moves on men, the character was played with no shame, and that's pretty cool. We also had a big Rocky Horror Picture Show number set to Time Warp, and we got to wear some outrageous costumes. And what impresses me is that the guys in the cast, including some jocks, had no problem getting into lingerie for the number. I took the opportunity to dress myself up as a glamorous flapper because I was a committed theater student, and it wasn't at all because I was excited about doing quick drag. Overall, it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience with a dedicated and amazing group of people that made it happen. There was even a live band, Inertia, who played music between set changes. And there was a real sense of joy and camaraderie in being able to be creative, play around, and have fun with our production. You can see some of that joy on stage during our final performance, and when Shu Young calls me up to give me a shout out for designing the program, I almost knock him over when I get up there.
You see those programs we gave you for the show? It was made by Mr. Disco Police himself.
But the moment that changed my life came at the after party. The night started innocently enough when gifts were handed out and I was given a hot pink Spice Girls CD wallet. In retrospect, even though I wasn't out, it almost felt like a quiet gesture of support because they knew I was a big Spice Girls fan and they knew I would love it, and I really did. But the big gay moment came later that night. There was a guy who held my hands and danced with me, kissed me on the cheek, and shouted out, "I love you, Garth," as he was leaving the party. So of course he turned out to be straight. But for me, it was the moment I knew I could no longer compartmentalize my sexuality, and that I would have to deal with it. It prompted me to come out to my best friend Felix and ask for his advice. It made me realize I danced with a guy, and I liked it. It made the idea of being gay real to me in a way that renting a video couldn't. Now looking back, it was a goofy, silly moment of fun that I took way too seriously. But I became a bubbling cauldron of teen angst. I had so many new emotions surfacing that I even cried to a Sarah McLachlan song. And that was before the commercials with the sad dogs. But I also look back with gratitude that it put me firmly in line to get on the big roller coaster that would lead me to become... In the years that followed, I had some very kind and encouraging reunions with friends from the drama show in my early years of coming out, as well as more recently. And even the guy who danced with me was very gracious when I officially told him I was gay, even though I bugged him for a long time about what that moment at the after party meant. And one of the songs that stood out to me that played at that after party was by MJ, who sang, which is spot on for Pride Month and life in general. I also think back to how brave it was for Jane Serreris to assign that monologue from Hosanna during our first month of drama class. A piece that dealt with drag and homosexuality and made us think about universal themes such as wanting to be loved and accepted for who we really are. That play was written in 1973 and still resonated in the 90s. And I appreciate that during our OAC drama show we got to blur the lines of gender, wear glittery, flamboyant costumes, and experience what Lucille Ball called having an enchanted sense of play, because that helps create a space where all the inhibitions and embarrassments disappear. Even though I couldn't make my inhibitions about coming out disappear at the time, I was around supportive people doing performances that gave me little sprinkles of hope that maybe I really could be accepted for who I am. However, in the last couple of years, I've noticed increased efforts to claw back the progress of the LGBT community, and it scares me. CBC's Chris Glover reported on successful efforts to prevent Catholic schools in the Dufferin-Peel region from flying the pride flag this June. Seeing people cheer and applaud taking away one of the smallest gestures of support and affirmation is appalling.
It's difficult to confront, and it's such a depressing feeling.
I was also upset to see Caden Douglas, writer and director of the amazing film Mother, Father, Sister, Brother, Frank, post on his Instagram story, "It's been a while since I've been sideswiped by homophobia in a workplace setting. I thought at this age I would be able to eloquently respond, but in the moment I reverted back to silence, thrown off by what was said." I saw his film at the Inside Out Festival in May, and there was so much queer joy at all the screenings I attended. So it's jarring to me that even an out, proud, successful artist like Caden can still experience something like that in 2024. There has been so much progress and acceptance since I was a scared, closeted teen in the 90s. But there are also reminders that celebrating Pride is still so essential in the fight against people who are trying to shame us back into hiding who we really are. On a lighter note, some of my classmates who are part of the OAC drama show have gone on to work on shows like Miss Persona, which had a beautiful, age-appropriate song celebrating a same-sex wedding called Love Every Moment.
I've got a family that makes me so proud. So many wonderful days, but I vowed we're gonna love every moment.
And I go back to MJ for a reminder that even when people try to rally against Pride, it's important to remember. So I want all of you watching to spread those little sprinkles of kindness and acceptance to everyone around you, because you never know who will grow and benefit from it. Pride is about love, and we need to amplify that, not just in June, but all year round. And now, I'm proud to share my final thoughts. You can take the boy out of Scarborough, but you can't take the Scarborough out of the boy. Since I'm covering my high school days, I need to give some love to Lester B. Pearson, in particular the amazing Pearson Playhouse. The classmates I kept in touch with after I moved to Markham were awesome when I came out to them, and I found out there were a lot more gay people than I realized at the school. But at the time, Pearson could feel pretty homophobic, especially when discussions in class turned into arguments about why homosexuality was wrong, or why do they have to dress like that in the parade? And little did I know I would become one of the people who dresses like that in the parade. But I quietly admired how my teacher Miss Reynolds would rebut homophobic opinions and always showed support for the LGBT community. Looking back, there were a few gay moments related to her class. I bootlegged a cable connection to the TV so that we could watch Rosie O'Donnell's monologue before class started. This was in the era when Rosie was constantly playing Savage Garden's song I Want You. Years later, Rosie declared her truth, and Darren Hayes from Savage Garden declared himself a proud homosexual. And I had a gay old time at his concert in 2023. The Montreal Gazette has a really good article by Jim Burke that questions whether Michel Tremblay's Hosanna is a Quebec classic or transphobic. The complicated legacy of the play is discussed by various actors who have played Hosanna, as well as Michel Tremblay himself. This discussion brings up interesting points about how flawed representation from the past can still have value in the present. Weezer's Pink Triangle, which I first heard backstage at the OAC drama show, is basically about a straight guy falling for a lesbian. That's not unlike the plot of Chasing Amy, which the fabulous Evasive tackles in a video where lesbians and bisexuals watch and critique the film. Evasive also gives a shout out to trans filmmaker Sav Rogers, director of the documentary Chasing Amy, and shows footage from Sav's TED Talk about how Chasing Amy saved his life and helped him with his identity. The YouTube comments on Evasive's video suggest that, much like Hosanna, generational differences can influence how you relate or respond to representation that may be problematic. A big thank you to amazing teachers like Jane Serreris and Miss Reynolds, who weren't afraid to challenge students and make them expand their worldview, and made it clear that LGBT lives are worthy of acceptance and respect. My experiences in their classes were important stepping stones towards accepting who I really was. That kind of support really makes a difference in young people's lives, and we need to make sure that kind of encouragement continues on. Thank you so much for watching. Stay loud, stay proud, and stay tuned for my next episode.
Oh!